The Dairy Queen returns us to a subject that was probably beat to death, 2 or 3 months ago. Earl did a video where he released a memo, an internal memo from the post office, where it said basically that post office employees were supposed to report the activities of the videographers and call the police on them and basically leave them alone. Other than calling the police on them, which is not saying that you get to film in there. It's just don't argue with them. Just call the police. Let the police deal with it. Shadowcam Wisconsin also had a very similar internal memo. We've seen the actual, this is 39 CFR 232.1I, photographs for news, advertising, or commercial purposes, except as prohibited by official signs or the directions of security force personnel or other authorized personnel. Photographs may be taken. Except as prohibited, photographs for news purposes may be taken. Except as prohibited. If it's prohibited, they can't be taken. That's what the post office is saying. This is Rhode Island's trespass and vandalism statute. And yes, the owner's duly authorized agent or a person legally entitled to possession of the premises can trespass you. It is questionable. There's a Ninth Circuit ruling that said the CFRs, the 39 CFR 232 CFRs that regulate conduct on postal property would preempt a state trespassing law. They basically, in the absence of a federal law, a federal enclave like a post office can use state law to fill that void. So, for example, the U.S. Post Office doesn't have to have a statute specific for, I don't know, stealing cars on their property. They could just default to the state law on stealing cars. But a court in the Ninth Circuit, Court of Appeals, determined that 39 CFR's regulations sufficiently covered trespassing that a state trespassing statute couldn't be used in its place. So, but I don't know about whatever circuit Rhode Island is. What is that, First Circuit or something like that? I don't know exactly. Maybe Second Circuit. Don't know, don't really care. Anyway, there's also the post office, what they think about it. They think that news media for reporting, they have to be referred to the local public affairs and communications representative. Photography and filming for personal use, they may be allowed at the postmaster's discretion. Now, is this regulation, is this going to pass scrutiny under the First Amendment, them not allowing private persons to photograph? And I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. This is US v. Kikinda. The post office is a non-public forum. Now, Kokinda is dealing with a sidewalk that leads from a parking lot on postal property to the post office's front door. If a sidewalk that is on postal property that doesn't border the street, if that is a non-public forum, then inside of the post office is also a non-public forum. Even conceding that the forum here has been dedicated to some First Amendment uses and thus is not purely a non-public forum under Perry, regulation of the reserved non-public uses would still require application of the reasonableness test. That means it just has to be reasonable. Thus, the regulation at issue must be analyzed under the standards set forth for non-public fora. It must be reasonable and not an effort to suppress expression merely because the public officials oppose the speaker's view. So it has to be reasonable and viewpoint neutral. Control over access to a non-public forum can be based on subject matter and speaker identity so long as the distinctions drawn are reasonable in the light of the purpose served by the forum and are viewpoint neutral. The government's decision to restrict access to a non-public forum need only be reasonable. It need not be the most reasonable or the only reasonable limitation. So the question will become, if this ever does get challenged, meaning if the photographer actually stands firm, well, either goes to court and seeks some sort of a clarification by the court, saying that he is going to film in a post office and that this post office regulation is chilling his First Amendment activity. He could go in there and challenge it under that. But what would be more likely to happen would be that the auditor would get arrested for it and could challenge it in the criminal proceedings, saying that it's a violation of his First Amendment activities or First Amendment rights, etc. So that said, I do think it is quite an interesting level of hubris. After getting spanked at her own complete ignorance of the law in her attempt to own me, she still continues believing that the police and the post office don't understand their law. So there you go. This is just your apparently quarter annual reminder that there are laws and regulations in effect that do prevent filming inside a post office. And unless somebody actually sacks up and challenges it in court and gets a court to say that regulation is a violation of the First Amendment, you're really just pissing into the wind. You get nothing for it but a face full of piss. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.